So last night I went to the Cinemark in North Haven, Connecticut, and they were showing 5555 Intastella, and it was a very great movie. It's actually the Daft Punk musical, and some people call it like a rock opera and other things like that, really. But it was definitely like the best one that I've seen my entire life. Really, it was way better than the Yellow Submarine. You understood what they're saying, and then also was better than Pink Floyd The Wall. And one thing that I liked about it is that if you ever wanted to show a child like a musical or a music opera, Daft Punk, this one's like a really good one to start at because it's not like Pink Floyd The Wall where it's just like intense and violent and disturbing really. But it really, really seems that what I think with them they told a really good story, and there's also a lot of themes with it. But I would say like the animation's really good. It's very beautiful. It's very like it's like rainbowic. I would say like it's just very, very colorful. There are some scenes where you see characters in the background. Their faces are all like blurry. Like sometimes they didn't like pay attention to detail or anything like that. But I don't really. But it doesn't. But it's a nitpick type of thing. The only thing that was bad about the film was that I did not like how at the end of the movie they had a bunch of Daft Punk videos. Like they had like six of them, I believe. And then I remember seeing like four of them, and I walked out of the theater because I was kind of like saying it felt like you saw something really, really great, and then it's almost like it's almost like having a really great dinner, and then somebody brings out a dessert, and then they said like, okay, try out this dessert, that dessert. Eventually, going to say no more really because it's a little too much, or it feels like when you watch All Elite Wrestling, and you go to one of the live shows, they'll be like, okay, can you stay an extra hour, or 2 hours, or 3 hours for Ring of Honor and other tapings, So sometimes that's going to happen really in a lot of situations where, what, it becomes a little too much really. So I was not happy that they did way too much of that. They should even like announced how many that they have really, because when you have too much, it's too much really. But it was really cool because obviously these videos are very hard to find, like the music videos that they did. But to go back to the animation, to go back to the film, it's about like this band, and they're all aliens with like blue skin, and they do a great job with music. They're like the biggest like stars in their intergalactic world, and then they get kidnapped, abducted, and then they get brainwashed into into being into being like superstars on Earth. So they change their skin tone. Most of them are white, one of them is black, and then as they are winning awards and other things like that, it's revealed two things happen that there's somebody from their home planet that wants to bring them back, and then there are two people who run a record company. There's this young guy who wants to help them out. He's really cool. And then there's this person who is part of a secret society. And his secret society is that he wants to sacrifice. What he wants to do is take, all these musicians, every musician, at least 555 of them. And once he gets a golden album, he puts it in a machine, and then he takes these musicians and he puts them in the machine, or he sacrifices them, sacrifices their lives really, and then they die. And when they die, once he has 5,555 of these souls, really, he has he has like power over the universe. So I understand, like every story has to have a bit of plot, really, and it does seem a little farce. But it's almost like there's so many good things, there's so many good music and other things going on, and you feel for these characters that even though it may seem a little stupid or repetitive, taking over the world, taking over the universe type of villain, really, it is what it is, really. It's almost like there's so many good things about this film that are going on that you don't overlook it. I think one thing that it does talk about really is like kind of like the purpose of musicians and music. I think that pardon me, I may cough. I'm coming over a cold, but it does talk about musicians, and I think that one thing it talks about was like when you see Interstellar, their group when they're at they're called I forgot the name of the group. Getting a little bit older, but what happens? I think they're called the Crescents. But the thing about it is that when they're on Earth and when they're like human beings, there's a few things about it. Is that obviously they're signing like all these autographs. They're expected to travel. They're expected to do all these things. They kind of like are tired and worn out, really. So it kind of like alludes to what we see in the music industry, where what stars are expected to be almost like slaves in a way. Like there's stories about Elvis that when he was alive, what happened was, I think it was like Colonel John Parker, if I'm saying the thing correctly, he wouldn't let Elvis leave certain hotels at times. Really, just you go down, you perform, you go back to your hotel room. Or there are like stars that like the Jackson Five, really, where Michael Jackson was abused by his father. Or there's stories about Jennifer Lopez. I like tacos and burritos. We all know the South Park reference, taco flavor kisses, where she kind of expects a lot from her dance crew, or she expects them to practice a lot. Or there's also like with Michael Jackson, where he expected a lot of just like rehearsals and all that, really. So there is like a sense of feeling like a slave. There's a sense of feeling like an automatron. There's a sense of your health and your well being is not really prioritized. And then also a lot of celebrities, a lot of reasons why they get into drugs and other things, because it's offered at parties. So sometimes it's almost like, okay, if it's going to help your career to be, drinking with the boys or doing coke with the boys, then so people feel peer pressured into that. And then once you're on a drug or on like a substance, really, then you become easily controlled because you're going to get more of it with the more money that you make. Or they say, oh, you can't have it. You can't have your baggie until you do all these things, really. So it does touch on, how the record industry does treat people like slaves. There's a sense of slavery or slave to your success, but also that, a way to make money is to exploit musicians or treat them like slaves or like, like one hit after another hit. You like not really care about where they go, not really care about their well-being, but care about their profitability until they're not profitable anymore. So that's really touched on upon. But I also think that the other thing too is that, obviously, when there are musicians that feel free, they can do whatever they want, really, and they don't feel like, like they don't feel like, like slaves. They feel like, they're allowed to be who they want to be, and they're allowed to go where they want to go and just be happy and merry, and create the music they want to create, really. Then that's a beautiful world. That's a beautiful thing. There's a sense of, there's really, really a sense of, how a person can turn out when you really believe in them versus when somebody's really, controlled. Or even look at Michael Jackson. He's a great example that when he was a kid, he did not have a lot of freedom, really. But as soon as like he got in his 20s and 30s, I think they said like Thriller or whatever had like over a few hundred songs on it, but they cut it down, really. But you saw like his biggest boom was in the 80s, really. It was not when he was, not in the 60s or the 70s, really, when he was a kid, controlled by his father, really. So sometimes when you allow people to be free and create the music they want to create, it's a beautiful thing, really, and you kind of get more out of it. So exploitation versus freedom is a big theme of this. But overall, very beautiful film. Definitely one of the best musicals that I've ever seen in my life. I was very, very lucky because I was really dead tired and exhausted and hurting, and I was like, nah, I paid money for this. I need to go, and I went and I had